All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today is Sunday, September 3rd, 2023. You are now watching Permission to. Wow, I can't even say my own name. It's been that long. You are now watching Permission to Exist. I am your host, Permission to Exist, also known as PTE. And we are getting back into the swing of things, everybody. Many of you know that I had been on an extended break, and then I suffered a personal tragedy that I did detail about 2 or 3 weeks ago on a live stream. So I'm hanging in there. I would be lying if I said I'm doing great. I'm not doing great, but I am hanging in there, which is all I could really hope for or ask for at this point. So thank you to everybody who sent love, well wishes, told me your own stories. It all helped. And if those of you who have missed that show or don't know what's going on, my puppy passed away on June 21st of this year. So it's been really hard, really difficult. Like grief is no joke. Grief is not something to be played around with, okay? But I'm hanging in there and I said, you know what? Let me dust my little boots off and let me keep going, especially considering everything that's been going on in our society. The least I could do is try to counter some of the narcissism, narcissistic behaviors that are going on in our society and not lay down in defeat. Because I had been feeling kind of defeated. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I had felt a little defeated by these narcs because they are relentless. My God, they don't let up. And that's kind of what makes it so exhausting to deal with them in the first place. And for a while there, I had thrown my hands up. But then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? If nothing else, I can make their life incredibly difficult for them. That's the least I could do. They may be relentless, but the least I could do is make their aims and their goals really, really hard to achieve. So I'm back and I'm here to do that. Before I start, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who continues to show your love and support in spite of my absences. I am thinking about shutting down Patreon. So maybe don't sign up on Patreon unless you really, really want to. But I am thinking about closing it. But who knows? We'll see. But those of you who send cash apps, super chats, or simply liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel, it all supports, it all helps, and I'm grateful for every bit of it. I really am. So thank you to those of you who hang in there with me. Oh, yeah, and channel memberships, which I might shut that down too. Only because I can't keep up with the promises that I made for the channel memberships. And I really hate that. I hate not being able to fulfill those promises. I just don't have time is really what it is. I don't have time. When I'm working full time, I'm amazed at how much it taxes my personal time. So part of the reason we're here tonight is because I don't have to go to work tomorrow. So because normally right about this time I'd be doing my hair to get ready to get up and go to work tomorrow and get my clothes ready and all that fun stuff. But I don't have to go to work tomorrow. So that's part of the reason we're even here tonight. But in spite of me working, I'm going to try to find a way to get back on track because I need to. And I feel like I owe you guys that much because some of y'all have been with me from day one back in 2016. So I appreciate you all. Let's see who I missed in the chat. Hello, OO. Hello, Leslie Kinney, MCer, Sun and Sunflowers, Venus Rose, Carlinder Edwards, Always Love, 456. Hello, everyone, and anyone I may have missed, Roxana. Hi, you guys. It's good to see you. You guys have no idea how much you cheer me up and put me in a good mood every time I see you guys' names. So thank you. So let's get into the show. Oh, and real quick, YouTube, in true YouTube fashion, has moved stuff around. So if you're looking for the live chat, you have to tap the live chat button, and then you have to tap underneath it where the comments normally are, and then the live chat should appear for you. Same for those of you watching the playback. You have to tap like where the comments normally are and then swipe to the left to see the live chat. Why YouTube chose to add a step, I'll never know. But there's a lot that we don't know about the decisions these people make about this platform. But whatever, we're here. Now you know. Hopefully you'll find your way to it, okay? So I figured we would ease our way back into this with a little humor, but also a lot of commentary with that humor. Okay. So I found this on LinkedIn probably maybe 2 or 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and I saved it because I said, oh, we're going to talk about this one day. And that day has arrived. And I can't give credit to the author because I don't know who it is. So if the author ever happens to come across this video, please let me know and I'm happy to give you credit. But this was actually on LinkedIn and it's an image of a boat with several people in the boat. And we have one person who says, people, we have a hole in the floor. And what we're going to explore tonight are all the different reactions to the people on this boat responding to this individual who's saying, people, we have a hole in the floor. And I need you guys to know that this live stream was very, very hard for me to name. I did not know what to call this live stream because there is so much, so many different things I could have called it. I almost called it Narc Boomer Boat, but then I didn't want to isolate the boomers and keep that whole conversation going. I think we need to focus on narcissism on a grand scale. So I didn't want to call it Narc Boomer Boat. Um, I almost called it Narc Logic 101, Narcissists Will Sink Your Boat. That was too long. So the title that we have is the title that I've settled on, but you'll see why I had trouble naming it in a minute. All right. So what I'm going to do for those of you who are listening is I'm going to read every caption and then we're going to isolate each caption and talk about it and examine the inherent narcissism within the statement. Okay. So again, we've got several individuals on a boat. One person has noticed that the boat has sprung a leak. And what we're going to read right now are all the different reactions to that and then go further. So the first guy says, aren't you ashamed to say something like that about our ship? There are plenty of other boats in worse shape than ours. The next guy says, are you an expert in shipbuilding? If there is a hole, then it's there for a reason. That means it's working. Then a lady who's sitting down painting says, everybody, let's mind our own business. Then we got a lady waving a flag saying, I'm so proud of our boat. I like it even better with the hole in it. Then we've got one airhead hanging off the side that says, guys, let's not be so negative. The next person has his fingers in his ear saying, I'm not listening until you communicate calmly and rationally. You should learn to consider other points of view. Then we got another guy that says, don't we have bigger things to worry about? And the final person has two things to say. The first thing he said was, are you going to fix it? Sit down and be quiet, smartass. No one is forcing you to stay in the boat. And the same person says, are you holophobic? My friend's boat has one and it's fine. If you don't like this ship, you should just build your own. Okay? So, and it's a cartoon graphic for those of you not looking at your screen. So now what we're going to do is isolate each of these and we're going to talk about it in the grand scheme of things, and you will discover why it was so hard for me to name this live stream. Chat says Narc Boomer Boat is hilarious. Sorry, I thought it was kind of funny too. But I didn't want to start off coming back offending the boomers, because all boomers aren't the same way. They really aren't. But I thought it was kind of funny too, to be honest with you. So let's explore. First of all, we have you. This is you. If you watch this channel, chances are this is you. You are the one who has noticed that there is a problem. People, we have a hole in the floor. You have recognized the gravity of the situation. You're on a boat in the middle of an ocean or a lake, and it has sprung a leak. And your ability to think a couple steps ahead and to have foresight and recognize cause and effect has told you, hey, if we don't do something about this, we're going to sink and we might possibly drown. That's you. So this is you. And you've made the mistake of letting the narcissist on the boat know that there is a problem. That's where you messed up. You let them know we have an issue here. Yes, this is all well and good when things are going well, when things are going as they should. This is fine. But things are not going as they should. And we have to do something about this because if we don't, we're all in trouble, not just me. This is not a me issue. This is an us issue. This is a we issue. And if we don't do something about this, we are going to be facing some serious consequences. So, this is you. All right. You have called to the attention of everyone on the boat that there is a hole in the floor and it's springing water. That's a problem. All right. So, now let's go ahead and start examining all these different thought processes that the narcs on the boat are having. So, this first guy, aren't you ashamed to say something like that about our ship? There are plenty of other boats in worse shape than ours. So, what is his narc logic? His narc logic is, yeah, this is a pretty bad situation, but because there are other boats similar to ours, but in worse shape, that means that we don't have to do anything about ours. We don't need to fix our problem. We don't need to fix our issue because other people are worse off than us. And I've seen that applied in pretty much every area of life you can think of. I've seen it applied in personal relationships, romantic relationships. I've, of course, absolutely seen it applied in the workplace. And I've seen it applied on like a national, international scale. For example, when you bring up an issue that might be facing the country, a lot of times the response that you'll get is, well, have you seen third world countries? You know, you've got it made compared to the way other people are living. And it's like, listen, maybe, perhaps we have it made compared to the way other people are living, but that does not mean that the way we are living is okay. It doesn't mean that just because someone is worse off than us, that we shouldn't try to fix us. That is some of the most broken logic I've ever heard in my entire life. That because someone else is doing worse than you, then you don't need to fix yourself. Like it is fitting, right? Chat says, how fitting for a time such as this. So because other countries are in abject poverty, we don't need to worry about our economic situation because other countries are living in abject poverty. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And like a true narc, they have trouble seeing how our current state could eventually lead to the same place that the countries you're comparing yourself to are leading to if we don't do something about it now. If we're not proactive and fix it now, we could end up looking just like them. They don't see it that way. This also plays out in families sometimes where there is mistreatment going on in a family. And let's say the kids complain. Sometimes you'll hear narcissistic parents say, oh, don't you know other kids out there have it way worse than you? Look at you. You have your iPhone, you have the internet, you have your own bed to sleep in, and you're complaining. It's like, yeah, but you just belittled me and shamed me and made me feel like crap. It's like, oh, so what? I hurt your feelings. Other kids have it worse. You see what I'm saying? So it's very, very similar to that line of thought. Because other people have it worse than us, we're not in bad shape. Like same with certain marriages. Like if one spouse or the other is complaining to the other spouse, they'll say, oh, haven't you looked around? Can't you see that every other couple is doing worse than we are? Stop complaining because other people are doing worse than us. That is the logic and that is the thought process. Stop complaining because other people have it worse than you. And what that allows them to do is put off taking any action at all towards improvement, towards getting better, towards a better state, because someone else has it worse than you. It's one of the worst excuses ever. Whenever I hear it come out in any format, I'm automatically turned off from whoever I'm talking to. So because it's a lazy person's excuse for taking no action. But we do know that narcissists are very lazy. Exactly, MC here. It says at least he doesn't beat you. Right. It's like, oh, he gambled away the family money. He's harsh to the kids, but at least he doesn't beat you, right? And we're just saying he because, that's the example, but it could be she as well. As we've recently seen, I don't know if y'all heard about the YouTuber who got arrested for child not treating properly. Try not to say the A word too much. For alleged child not treating properly. She was like, I forgot what the name of the channel was, but she had like 8 kids or something. And like she was like a really strict disciplinarian and like put it out publicly for the world to see, and people had been complaining about her for years. Apparently there's like a whole story to it. You may or may not have heard about it, but yeah, similar to that. So it could go both ways for sure. But yes, you get it. Don't complain because other people have it worse than you. Terrible excuse, really lazy excuse for inaction, basically. Meanwhile, there's still a hole in the floor taking on water. All right. So now let's examine the next mindset. He says, are you an expert in shipbuilding? If there is a hole, then it's there for a reason. That means it's working. So here what we have is the narcissistic mindset that if you are not an expert, then you have no credibility whatsoever. And this also happens to be the same type of person who's very easily led astray and very easily misled, very easily scammed, and very easily conned, because all you have to be is a so-called expert. And they shut off all critical thinking and all independent thought that should be occurring in their mind. They shut it off because you're an expert, but they also use it in the reverse. So if you raise a problem, if you point out a problem, but you're not an expert, they will ignore you and they won't listen to you because you're not an expert. And then the second part, if it's there for a reason, that means it's working. That's just pure uncut stupidity. You're just dumb. You're on a boat and there's a hole in the bottom. Surely common sense would kick in at some point, but no. But they'll say things like that, you know? So it's kind of like you can't raise an issue to them because they assume that if it's there, it's supposed to be there, and can't think around the corner and be like, well, maybe it's not supposed to be there, or let me look into it a little bit further. They just accept everything at face value, which is also one of the reasons they're very easily scammed, very easily conned, because they don't question anything. So there's really 2 of them kind of layered in this one. The lack of questioning, the lack of critical thinking, and also the automatic disregarding of you because you're not an expert in the field. So where this comes out frequently is, and not just in the medical sense, but like somebody won't listen to you because you don't have a PhD in fill in the blank. You know, let's say you're having a new home constructed and you walk in and maybe the beams are like leaning, like looking like they're about to snap or something. So you raise the issue to the construction crew, like, hey, are those beams okay? And they look at you and say something like, are you an expert in home building? It's like, well, no, but I thought beams were supposed to be like straight. I'm just asking. And instead of them answering your question, they would clap back with something like, well, do you have a PhD in construction? Have you ever worked on a construction site? It's like, well, no. And it's like, but they're definitely sitting at a 90-degree angle when they're supposed to be like straight up and down. And I'm just curious why. I just want to know. That's all. So it's almost like It's a very snarky but ignorant retort to someone bringing an issue to you. Well, you're not an expert, so therefore I don't have to listen to you. And I also don't have to go into it any further because you're not an expert. Right. Chat says definitely invalidate you quickly to shut you up. You see what I'm saying? And the same type will also only listen to experts. So there's no such thing as a second opinion to people like this. If an expert told them so, then they're going to follow the expert's advice no matter what, even if that person is a charlatan. But they'd never see that because, again, they're very easily scammed and duped because all you have to have are quote unquote credentials. And I'm not knocking people with credentials. Some people with credentials absolutely are experts in their field, and their opinion should be strongly considered. However, you should never abandon the natural critical thinking that exists within your mind. You should never abandon that. That is one of the things that makes you human, and that is one of the things that makes you free. The ability to think on your own. When you give that up, you're really no different than a run of the mill robot. You're really not. Excuse me. A lot of people are scared of artificial intelligence, and there have been all these articles and videos coming out. People are scared of AI, scared of what AI can do, what it might do, what it might do without our consent. I'm not worried yet. And the reason I'm not worried, number one, is because Siri doesn't know what I'm saying 90% of the time. But number two, because it's designed by humans, and most humans haven't learned to think outside of zeros and ones yet. So until I see a large number of highly intelligent human beings programming these things, I'm not concerned. Now, does it take a certain skill set to even create an AI chatbot or an AI robot? Of course, like I can't go build an AI robot. I can't even program a computer, but I can learn. But it's not dangerous until an extremely intelligent person programs it. And until that happens, you have nothing to worry about because they tend to run extremely intelligent people out of these types of businesses. They tend to get rid of them. So you have nothing to worry about, I assure you, honey. Now, when they start to shift that and change that and allow people who, for example, will say, hey, people, hey, we got a hole in the floor. When they start allowing people in the business that are allowed to say, people, we have a hole in the floor and their career is not at risk for saying so, now you have to worry. Now you have something to worry about because that means that they're starting to let the intellects in. Again, skill and intellect are two different things. You can be skilled to program one of these things. You could be trained, any of you. If you devoted the time and you had a pretty good teacher, any of them could teach you how to do it. It's not about skill, it's about intellect. They run the intellects out of the building. Okay. So you have nothing to worry about until they let the intellects in. Now you have something to worry about. Okay. So let's move on. Yeah. Chat says that relates to your high achiever video. I have a video called Narcissists All No, High Achievers Will Always Fail with the Narcissist or something like that, where we basically cover that issue. That if you are a high achiever, high intellect, you're going to fail in the workplace with the narcissist because they're going to make sure of it. Basically, that video is out there. I'll link it after the show. But good point. So let's move on to the next talking head. God, I'd hate to be on the boat with these people. Now, this chick is so checked out. This man has just told you, hey, everybody, there's a hole in the boat. She's sitting down painting a picture saying, everyone, let's just mind our own business. And do we not know people like this? Do we not know narcissists like this, where something is happening, something serious is happening? You're trying to raise that issue and bring light to that issue. And their response is, let's just mind our own business. Let's just mind our own business. Like, in other words, look the other way. So, it doesn't matter to her that she's on the same boat that is taking on water that has not registered to her. Her reaction is, everybody, let's just mind our own business. In other words, look the other way. And then typically these are the same people who are perplexed and outraged at some issue that has grown and spiraled out of control. And it's like, well, you spent decades minding your own business, turning your head, looking the other way. And now that issue you refuse to acknowledge or address has spiraled out of control. And now you want to complain about it. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, you just go right back to painting until the boat goes under. Then you'll be the first one waving your hands in the air, trying to get somebody to rescue you out of a situation that maybe you could have helped do something about. Now, all situations we're not going to have influence over. We're not going to have influence over all outcomes, but sometimes we can take action to prevent a bad outcome. But when we look the other way and pretend like it's not happening, well, physics or the laws of nature, whatever you want to call it, holds that an object in motion remains in motion until it is acted upon by an outside force. You could be that outside force, but you choose not to be. So just keep painting. All right? Just keep on painting and mind your own business until the boat goes down. All right? So far, this guy's had no help. He's really, really tried to raise awareness that, hey, we have a problem here. Mayday, SOS, we've got an issue here. But so far, everyone has been filled with excuses or just ignoring the issue, which, if you think about it, is the root word of ignorant. Ignoring, ignorant, that ignore root, it's the same thing. An ignorant person has largely ignored things, ignored certain things. So, as a result of them ignoring so many things, they are now ignorant. So, I'm sure this is not the only thing that she is ignorant about in her life. But let's keep going. This one here, out of all of them, I feel like this one triggers me the most, and I'm not sure why. I'm not entirely sure why this character triggers me the most. But there's a hole in the boat. It's taking on water. She's sitting on the edge talking about, I'm so proud of our boat. I like it with that hole even better. And I think this one triggers me because I think it reminds me a lot of my different workplace experiences. Not 100% sure about that, but I feel like it does because it's like they see something wrong, they know something is wrong, and instead of taking action to address the issue, they flip it to this toxic positivity thing. Like, well, you're saying something bad about our boat, so I'm going to say something good about our boat because I'm a good person and you're a bad person for even drawing attention to the bad thing. So because you're saying something bad about it, I'm going to say something good about it. I am so proud of our boat. And as a matter of fact, I like it even better with that hole there. Yeah, it's like a fake positive person. Yeah. I hate it so much. Again, this one triggers me the most. This one triggers me the most. Like, for example, let's say there's a training program being run at a company, and everyone who takes the class hates it, always get bad survey feedback. So you have the courage to go to your boss and say, hey, we're not really getting the best feedback on this class. Participants don't like this, they don't like that, they don't like this, and they don't like that. It's right here. Here's the data. I didn't alter the data. It's right here. And then your coworker overhears it and goes, "Well, you know what? I'm really proud of our class. We've done 200 sessions of that class over the past 10 years. So like, okay, so people don't like it, but I'm actually really proud of our class. We put on a whole lot of them. It's like it doesn't matter how many you put on if it's not good." That's like saying, "I ate today." Well, what did you eat? A bunch of rocks? You ate rocks? Honey, there's no nutritional value to rocks. You can't eat rocks. Well, I'm proud of all the rocks that I ate. I ate 100 rocks today. And all you can do is criticize me because it's not food. I'm like, but it's not food. And as a matter of fact, you should probably get to the ER to see if they can pump your stomach and get those rocks out of your system. It's like, you know what, PTE, you are so negative. Wow, you're negative. I'm like, I'm not negative. I care about you. And you just told me you ate 100 rocks for food. And I'm like, well, sweetheart, that's not food though. You know what, PTE? They were great rocks. They were smooth, they were clean, they went down really easy. And all you can do is criticize me, talking about it's not food. You need to get your stomach pumped. Oh, I'm proud of the rocks that I ate. And a matter of fact, I might go eat some more rocks tomorrow. You see what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. The chat says that's also in toxic families when most have failed, but the elders are still proud. Right. Mm, that's deep. When there's a lot to not be proud of, the elders are still proud. And you know what that makes me think? I'm like, some people are just happy that the family is still alive. And I'm like, well, what good is it to be alive if it's been nothing but chaos and destruction since they got here? Or they've been destructive to themselves or destructive to other people, but you just happy that they're still alive, that they made it to their 30th birthday, 40th birthday, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. It's great to survive, but what good is survival if you're not thriving? Right. Are you a nutritionist, PTE? Don't tell me I can't eat rocks, okay? They have a great alkaline quality, okay? And I'm like, all right. See, I'll stop fighting with them eventually. I'll be like, all right, do it. You should put ketchup on them next time. Go for it. I'll sit here and cheer you on. Maybe tomorrow have some olive oil covered rocks. Go for it. But just please don't call me when you need to be rushed to the ER because I'm not taking you. I might hail an Uber for you, but I'm not driving you up there because all I'm going to do the whole time is be like, I told you not to eat those rocks. I told you. But this one just bothers me so much because it's usually coming from the person who overhears you offering a valid criticism, not a criticism just to tear people down or make people feel bad, because that's not really criticism. I don't know what that's really called, the vocabulary word for it. When you're just trying to make people feel bad and like shame them and guilt them for no reason, versus constructive criticism where you're actually trying to help them be better, trying to make them better because you care. And especially if you're on the same boat with them. It's one thing to be on your own boat that has no holes. You'd be like, hey, friend, it looks like you sprung a leak over there. And they'd be like, oh, shut up, mind your own business. I'm proud of our boat. And it's like, okay, all right. Well, you can swim over here when you go under. You know, we'll take you on board. We won't let you drown. But you definitely sprung a leak. But carry on, friend. Like, if, hey, you don't have to listen to me. I'm over here on my boat. My boat doesn't have any holes. I'm just trying to help you out. Right. But when you're on the same boat as them, the same boat, it becomes an even greater problem because now it is also your issue. So there's not much you can do when it's not really your issue. If you care, you tell them. If they disregard what you told them, all right, well, I'll see you once you sink. You know what I'm saying? I'll throw you a life raft. But if I'm on the same boat as you and you're not listening to me and taking my concerns seriously, now we have a problem. But what you want to do, oh, because I said something negative about the boat. You know what? I'm so proud of our boat. I'm really proud of it. And I like it with that hole even better. And you know what? This one is not on here, but one that they should have included would have been, This boat has made 65 trips with no problem before. And it's like, okay, true. This boat has made 65 trips with no problem. That is a true and factual statement. But why do you think that just because there's been no problem before, there can't be a problem now? On trip number 66, it is just so foolish. And so many adults operate like this, you guys. Because there's never been a problem before, surely there won't be a problem now. They can't fathom they can't fathom it. Chat says I'm letting the narcissist drown. Don't let him drown. At least flee the scene so then you won't have any guilt on your hands. Don't sit there and watch him drown. It's like, all right, well, I'm out of here because when y'all go under, I don't want the suction from your boat to pull my boat under, so I'm out. Good luck. There's a shore over there. Try to swim to it, okay? But that one would have gone perfectly on here. This boat is fine. It's made 101 trips before with no problems. Oh, okay. So then that means that there can never be any problems, right? Because there were no problems before. Right. Same thing. So this is the person, this is the narc who takes your criticism and flips it into weird, toxic positivity, which takes us to our next person who's just like, guys, let's not be so negative. Let's not be negative. And it's like, I'm actually not being negative. I'm raising a very, very valid and serious concern here. And you're not taking it seriously because anything that's not positive and super happy and light and fluffy is considered negative, and that is a problem in our society, y'all. This lack of truth telling and the lack of the ability to tell the truth in all things is tanking us, like from the great to the small. It seems that you simply cannot tell people the truth. So I'll tell you how this is showing up in my life. I used to be like the survey queen. So if I used a product or service and then the company sent me a survey, I would always fill out the survey and send it back. And I was like that for years. I stopped taking their surveys. You want to know why? Because I learned that it's useless. I cannot think of one time, not one example of where my survey feedback has later shown up in that product or service. Now, some would push back and say, well, PTE, they're not going to change their whole business model for one person. Maybe not. And I wouldn't expect you to change your whole business model for one person. But I just know statistically and mathematically that I can't be the only one who sees this problem. And I cannot possibly be the only one who's ever told you that before. I can't be. I'm not that special. So surely someone else has seen it, brought it to your attention, and you also chose to do nothing with their feedback. So I just stopped telling them. And my position now is figure it out. Like DoorDash. DoorDash will send a survey. Did you like your food? Figure it out. You figure it out. Because when I tell you, actually it was kind of cold, or actually it was nasty, or blah, 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 do you even relay that feedback back to the restaurant? No, you don't. And I know that because when I try again in a few weeks and it's the same problem, you know what I'm saying? After I told you about it, like I said, you know what? I'm wasting my time filling out these surveys. So I'm not doing it anymore because it's a waste of time. They don't listen. That's another one that could have gone on this little illustration. Well, no one has ever told me that before. Hey guys, there's a hole in the boat. Well, no one else sees the hole. Well, it's right here. I'm showing it to you. Well, no one else has brought it to my attention. So imagine that this is like a yacht or like a cruise ship or something. And you happen to be in some random part of the ship and you see like water bubbling up and you're like, oh my God. There's a hole in the boat. So you run upstairs to the captain. You say, "Hey, captain, I was just down in the lower deck. I think there's a hole in the boat." And the captain looks at you and says, "No one else has come to me and told me there's a hole in the boat." It's like, well, I'm telling you, allow me to be the first person. When I'm feeling like a smartass and somebody says something like that to me, no one else has told me about it. I like to say, well, allow me to be the first person. But it's a similar situation. The captain looks at you and says, "Well, no one else has come to me and told me about a hole in the boat." Okay, then. So I guess that means it's not real. Yes, toxic positivity is mostly gaslighting. Absolutely. Right. Chat says most people can't handle the truth. They can't. They can't. They absolutely cannot. So in that analogy situation, I'd be like, okay, well, who do I need to go get to verify that there's a hole in the boat, sir? I'm not trying to trouble you. I'm not trying to disturb your day or your perfect cruise, but I believe there's a hole in the boat. Can someone come take a look, please? Like, it's the same thing. Because no one else has come to me and told me that, then it must not be true. But I'm a someone, so allow me to be the first person to actually bring it to your attention. Like, it's so sad. Like, it's a really sad existence. It's pitiful to me. It's really pitiful. Like, the whole country, maybe even the whole world, has lost like its initiative almost. I think there might be a better word for it. But it's a word that means the ability or the desire to take action immediately on something, or like follow up or follow through. So like I watch a lot of true crime shows, right? And I can't tell you how many times like an issue was raised to the local police department and they chose to do nothing about it until something major happened. Then they decided to take action, even though other people had told them about it. And actually, we just brought up a perfect example earlier of the YouTuber who apparently was not treating her children correctly. And people have been reporting it, reporting it, reporting it. They did nothing until I think one of the kids like escaped the house and ran to a neighbor's house and they were malnourished and had like duct tape on their hands or something. I don't know the full details of it. You'll have to look it up. But then they finally took action. Oh, initiative. Okay, is that what it is? It is initiative. Okay. Like, yes, sweep it under the rug. Look the other way. Do nothing until it gets so bad that you have to take action. And the worst part is that they were told about it. It's one thing to be caught off guard. It's one thing to be completely unaware of something. But when someone has told you about an issue and you do nothing because you feel like they're being negative and ruining your day, that can lead to catastrophic consequences. It can lead to your boat sinking. Just like I saw earlier in the chat, somebody brought up the Titanic submarine. I was going to do a whole show on that, but then too much time passed and I felt like it wasn't quite as relevant anymore. But I think it's always going to be relevant because people told that man about that sub. The regulating agency that deals with underwater submersibles told him this sub cannot go below, I think, what, 4,000 meters or nautical something, cannot go below 4,000. He took it to 10,000 and even is on video somewhere saying something to the effect of, I feel like all they're doing is like stifling progress and getting in the way of basically what he wanted to do. And that's me paraphrasing. But he basically felt like all the rules and everything were holding him back, which is just, maybe I should do that. Maybe like a case study on it, even though we all know all the details. I think it's a very valid case study on how narcissism can sink your boat or your submarine. And a submarine is meant to sink. So the fact that you sunk a submarine is really impressive. But the saddest part of that whole story to me is the fact that the youngest person on there, I think he was 19, a 19-year-old son of another passenger who was on the same sub, he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. But his dad basically talked him into it. It was like a Father's Day gift to his father. So to make his dad happy, he went on that sub with him. And I just think that is the saddest thing. And I think it's a lesson to us all. It's a really sad lesson, but it's a lesson to us all, which is if your gut is screaming at you, if your instinct is screaming at you, you have to honor it. You can't ignore it. No matter whose feelings you're going to hurt. And oftentimes, what will happen is your gut will be screaming at you, your instinct will be screaming at you. You'll honor it, and nothing happens. And then you'll feel ridiculous on the other side, like, man, I made a big deal out of nothing. You know, everything was fine, everything went fine, everyone is fine. I made a big deal out of nothing, but you don't know that. Because as somebody told me many years ago in relation to my cabin in the woods story that some of you know, they said, PTE, if you had stayed, things might have been different. And it really stuck with me. I'm like, you know what? They're right. The super cliff note short version is I was working for a company. They did a team offsite in a cabin in the woods, and it was overnight. We weren't required to stay the night, but highly encouraged to stay the night. I didn't want to, so I left, drove home, came back the next morning, did all the team building stuff. Then we all left. And I was basically explaining how I'm pretty sure that wrecked my brand in their eyes. Like, oh, she's so not a team player. Like we spent all this money and rented out this beautiful cabin in the North Georgia mountains, and she didn't want to stay here with us overnight. Why? Is she scared of us? Does she not like us? Blah 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 blah. Whatever. And I just did not care about what they thought about me. I just didn't want to be there. It made me so uneasy and so uncomfortable. So I left, but nothing happened. Everyone survived. Everyone's alive. There were no major incidents. So I was telling the audience how, nothing happened, but I still didn't regret leaving. And then somebody in the chat says, PTE, if you had stayed, things might have been different. And I think you're right. So, yeah, it said that bothered me so much with the submersible. The son's gut spoke to him not to go. And he went anyway. That is just so sad to me. That is sad. Like that to me, that is the greatest tragedy. A loss of life is always tragic, but to me, that's the greatest tragedy out of that whole story. That he did not want to go, but he went anyway. And how many times have we been in situations where we didn't want to do something, but we did it anyway because we didn't want to upset the narc? We didn't want to rock the narc's boat, so we got on the boat and the boat sank. And it may not always end in tragedy. I hope more often than not, nothing happens. But I really also hope more often than not, you honor your gut. And some of you might say, well, PTE, if I honored my gut, I would barely do anything. Well, yeah, I mean, hey, it is what it is, right? Like that might mean you don't go very many places, but you just have to, I don't know. I feel like that little voice is there trying to guide us for a reason. And I don't want to make you afraid of the world, but certainly there are things out there that you're not scared to do, or that your gut doesn't say, hey, don't do that. Like you actually want to do it. So hopefully you have a balance there, a balance of things you want to do and a balance of things that your gut is like, I'm not into that. I'm not feeling that. Not feeling it. Anyway, let's move on. So this one here, guys, let's not be so negative. This is Mrs. Toxic Positivity. I'm sure she's best friends with the one right above her talking about, I'm so proud of our boat. And wow, she really triggers me. She triggers me for real. Because it's almost like it's all or nothing with this one. It's all or nothing with them. It's like it's either all good or all bad. And it's like, no, our boat is beautiful. It's lovely. It has taken us out on many different trips and performed very well. Our boat is a good boat, except for one problem. It has a hole in it right now. We need to do something about that. And it's like, oh, well, you just trashed our whole everything. It's like, no, I didn't trash your everything. There are very many good parts that we should be proud of, but we need to also fix this. That's like being super healthy and like fit and athletic. And then you break your arm and you're like, you know what? Screw you, arm. Excuse me. We are very healthy. Like, I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my whole life. How dare you break? And the arm is like, well, I'm sorry for breaking, but can you put me in a cast though? It's like, no, because you are attached to a healthy body. This is a healthy body. And it's like, yes, you are healthy. You're very healthy. You are as fit as you've ever been, but you also have a broken arm right now that you need to address. You cannot ignore the fact that your arm is broken just because the rest of your body is healthy. You have to do something about it. And then guess what? Eventually, your whole body will be healthy again. But right now, your arm is not healthy. Well, screw you and your negativity talking about a broken arm when my other arm is just fine. Let me move on because she triggers me so much. I'll stay there all night. So now let's move on to Mr. Sensitive Narc. I am not listening until you communicate calmly and rationally. You should learn to consider other points of view. So this one is upset because you raised your voice a little bit to communicate the major issue that's going on. Okay. Okay. So because you did not present your case in a calm, rational voice, they refuse to listen to you. They haven't reached a level of maturity that would allow them to hear what you're saying in spite of the fact that you communicated it maybe a little bit too loud or maybe a little bit too wild. So this fool would rather this fool would rather take on water and sink because you didn't speak nicely to him. And it's like, well, when I tried to communicate calmly and rationally to you, you ignored me and told me to mind my own business and be more positive. So now I'm yelling at you and you don't like it. So you're going to plug your ears. Okay. Like, okay. Because you don't like how I said it, you're going to throw out the whole communication versus being like, okay, I understand there's a hole in the boat, let's fix it, but maybe next time can you not yell at me, please? Which would be a way to approach it. Like, hey, okay, I hear you. There's a hole in the boat, let's get it patched, but maybe next time don't scream at me. It's like, okay, fine. My apologies for screaming at you, but I felt like you weren't hearing what I was trying to say to you. And I feel like narcs will take you to this place. Narcissists will disregard your calm, rational communications where you're using all your punctuation, you're speaking clearly, simply, as fluently as you possibly can. They completely ignore you and disregard it. So when you up the ante to get your message across, well, now you're being mean. Yeah, don't yell at me. I'm sensitive. Right. Chat says it seems like if you were proud of your boat, you would quickly fix any legitimate problem you see. Exactly. Right. But the fact that there's a problem is a severe swipe on their ego. You've now inflicted a narcissistic injury upon them because their boat is perfect. Remember, they are perfect. Their boat is perfect, and the fact that you've called out something less than perfect to them, well, now you wounded their ego, and now they're angry and want to get back at you somehow. Right. Chat says the narcissist would rather go up in smoke than address any issues that points a finger at them. Absolutely. And then this one follows it up with you should learn to consider other points of view. And it's like, well, what other point of view is there? A boat that doesn't have a hole in it? Well, that's the point of view I'm trying to get to, but y'all are acting like there's nothing wrong. Y'all are acting like there's nothing wrong and there is. And now you have plugged your ears because I said it in a tone that you didn't like. Well, you weren't listening the first time. So it's like, and that's what they do though. They act and once see, this is why it was hard to name this live stream because I have a video called Words Don't Work with Narcissists. And I think this would be a perfect illustration of that because I'm sure this guy who noticed the hole said it calmly at first, like, oh, hey guys, I think there's a hole in the boat. and they're off in la la land, super delusional, super defensive. They're all defensive. Every single one of these people, very defensive about the hole in the boat. So you're sitting here like, oh God, like we're taking on water. So in the original picture, you'll see he's trying to plug the hole with his shirt or something like a rag or something. Meanwhile, these people are off in la la land. So I'm sure eventually he started yelling at them like, hey, you idiots, over here. There's a hole in the boat and we're going to sink if we don't fix it. La la la, I can't hear you. Don't speak to me that way. If you want to talk to me, you need to speak to me calmly and rationally. It's like, I already did. I already tried that. How can I say this without violating YouTube's terms of service? I really feel like many narcissists need to be communicated with physically. And that's the best way that I can say that. You're going to have to apply your context clues to figure out what I actually want to say. But I feel like a lot of narcs really need physical communication to get your point across because they completely ignore words. Yeah, chat says first they exasperate you, then they complain and act surprised that you're not super nice. Right, exactly. Exactly. Some of you figured it out. I feel like they need a more physical form of communication because using words is totally useless. Like my boss now, I want to do an experiment on her so bad. Cuz she'll ask for something and she'll be like, "Yeah, just email me." So I'll type it up in an email. I've learned to be clear but brief, so I don't write thesis statements. I don't write novels. Short, sweet, to the point. And the way that I know she didn't read it is because she'll ask me about something. She'll ask me about something that I've actually already told her in the email. And she's done it more than once. And I'm like, wow, you really don't read what I write. Okay. So one day I just want to like just plug in just a random string of words, just something super random, and see if I get confronted about it. Like, hey, PTE, I was reading your email. What did this mean? Just something. And I'll be like, oh my God, typo. Wow. Huh, I must have been sleepy that morning. Huh, must not have had my coffee that morning. I'm so sorry. That was a typo. My bad. You know. But she won't. I already know she won't. There's no need for me to run that experiment because I already know she's not going to see it because she's not going to read it. And I'm like, maybe I should communicate with this one in emojis. Just find all the emojis I can to express what I'm trying to say and just write out like a string of emojis and then sign my name at the bottom and send it because she doesn't read it. And it's actually kind of annoying because then it's like, why am I typing all this stuff if you're not going to read it? But I continue to do so because documentation is important. So you actually can't say I never told you because I did. All right. So let's move on. So this guy, don't we have bigger things to worry about? So this is kind of similar. It's similar but different to the whole, well, other people have it worse type situation. This guy is, I don't know, having some sort of existential crisis. He can't be bothered with the hole in the boat because we have bigger things to worry about. It's like what, sir? In this moment, what bigger do we have to worry about than the fact that this boat that we're on in the middle of the ocean is sinking? What's more important than that? What is more relevant than that? Once we get the hole patched, then we can focus our attention on those bigger things. I agree with you. There are bigger things for us to worry about, but not right in this moment, though. Not right now, though. And I feel like this is how a lot of marriages fail, too. One spouse or the other refuses to acknowledge like little issues because the other spouse is on some, don't we have bigger things to worry about? And it's like, yeah, we do, but we also have this to worry about. Two things can be true at the same time. Y'all figured out what I was saying about that physical communication. Like when you know you're dealing with a narc, and I'm not advocating for this, the following commentary is a joke. When you're dealing with a narc, it's almost like you should just walk up to them. Don't say hi, hello, good morning, nothing. Communicate physically first, then say what you need to say to them. And when they're like, wow, what was that about? Say, I needed to make sure you heard what I was about to say to you. And I know that otherwise you don't listen. So that's why I walked up to you, communicated physically with you first, then delivered my message because you don't listen. All right. So that's the end of the joke, YouTube. All right. I am not advocating for physical communication. I'm just saying it seems like that's what they need because words don't work. What's the point? Why even try? If you already know that words don't work on them, well, something works. Anyway, let me move on. So he can't focus on the hole in the boat because he believes there's bigger things to worry about. Okay. And then on to our final narc. There we go. On to our final narc, who actually had two things to say. So the first thing that he said was, well, are you going to fix it? Sit down and be quiet, smartass. No one is forcing you to stay in the boat. Oof. Oh, God. This one triggers me almost as much as I'm really proud of our boat. So, not the first part as much as the second part. So, are you going to fix it? Well, then sit down and be quiet. So, in other words, he doesn't like to hear complaining unless you're going to do something about it. But as you can see, this person actually is trying to do something about it. He's trying to plug the hole with like a rag or something. He's the only one trying to fix it on the whole boat. But this one is mad to hear the complaint at all. So he's like, are you going to do it? If not, just sit down and be quiet. Okay, great. So we can all drown. Perfect. Right? But it's that second part, not homie the clown. Oh, flashback. But exactly though, just like that. Walk right up to him, just like homie the clown used to with that sock. Okay. Um, it's the second part of this one for me. No one is forcing you to stay in the boat. This is another cop out excuse phrase that narcissists use for inaction. It's the equivalent of if you don't like it, leave. Because that's always the answer, right? Not let's fix it, not let's work on it, not let's repair it. If you don't like it, leave. Which could be an entire show all by itself. Because what it's basically telling you is, I'm not going to change. Though your concern might be valid, I'm not going to fix it and I'm not going to do anything about it. So if you don't like the circumstances here, leave, which on its face is a true statement. Like, okay, well, I don't like it here, so I think I actually am going to leave. But in truth, is that really the answer? And is that really the solution? Because the problem remains, the problem persists, the problem is going to stay. So, you know, and that's typically what we advise, right? Like, get away from narcs, gray rock them, pretend like they don't exist if you can. Get away from them, basically, which is the equivalent of us actually leaving. But what do narcissists do when you leave them? They typically melt down, freak out, have complete narcissistic explosions or implosions because you chose to actually walk away from the problem. So they're never actually happy that you chose that option. Like, okay, I think I will leave. It's like, what? You're leaving me? Yeah, because you refuse to fix the problem. Chat says the constant evading of problems. Yes, it's a very evasive spirit and a very evasive personality. And as soon as I see it out of a person or a group or a business or whatever, I do exactly what they say, which is leave. But the problem remains, though. You're going to continue to have the same problem. I know some of you have worked for companies before. who've had that basic attitude. Well, if you don't like it here, you can leave, because other people in other companies have it way worse. So you actually have it made. But if you don't like it, leave. So you do. Then you check in with your coworkers who stayed behind a couple years, couple weeks later, and they're like, yeah, turnover is insane. People keep quitting. Two or three people quit every week. Why do two or three people quit every week? Because the problem remains. Now, it's not your problem anymore, but the problem remained. And I think what narcissists miss is that the fact that I'm telling you about it at all means, to some extent, I care. I actually care. Like, think about it like this. I hope none of you would actually do this because it's kind of evil. But if you have like an enemy, this is just hypothetical. If you have an enemy and you see them get into their car and you see like their back tire is completely flat and you're feeling evil, you may not tell them. Now, I don't advocate for that. I feel like I would still tell them, hey, your tire's flat. But just roll with the example, right? You can't stand them, you don't like them. They get on your nerves, so you choose not to tell them that their tire is flat. Why? Because you don't care, right? Versus caring about someone even a little bit, enough to be like, hey, your back tire is flat. Now, when they turn around and tell you to mind your own business and be more positive, that's when you're supposed to go, all right, okay. I just wanted to let you know. Why? Because you care. Now, in reality, I hope that you guys would tell them regardless. I really do. I hope that you would tell them regardless, but I know some of y'all wouldn't tell them anything. You're like, take off. But anyway, I think our responsibility is to raise the issue. And what they choose to do with that after is really on them, unless it affects you too, like it does in this particular illustration. This guy is on the same boat as them. It's not like he can just get off the boat and walk off. They're in the middle of the water. They're in the same scenario. So it affects us all. You will not ignore me. We are going to do something about this hole in the boat. If I have to go around and physically communicate with every single one of you, we're going to do something about this hole in the boat, because I'm not drowning with you idiots. All right? I'm not drowning because y'all are so ignorant, meaning ignoring of an issue, that you refuse to do something about it. And so we all die together? Absolutely not. I'm going to try to remember that thought, because I want to comment on that. And it's related, but not related to this. So let's finish this out. So no one's forcing you to stay here. You're right. I'm leaving. Then you'll have a meltdown, a narcissistic breakdown. So let's get to the last one from the same person. Are you holophobic? My friend's boat has one and it's fine. If you don't like this ship, you should just build your own. This comes out of a lot of corporations. Oh, if you don't like our company, why don't you go start your own company? And some people do. It's rare, but it happens. Some people do go start their own company and they're wildly successful. But most of us aren't in a position to go start a multi-million-dollar corporation tomorrow. You might start something and it might eventually become a multi-million-dollar corporation, but most of us are not in the position to make something like that happen, and they know it. But just look at the ignorance and the arrogance and the snark embedded in that comment. If you don't like this ship, you should just build your own. It's like, sweetheart, it's not about me not liking the ship. I was actually rather enjoying the ship until a hole sprang in the bottom of it and started taking on water. I'm not trying to ruin your day. I'm not trying to upset you. I'm not trying to tell you you did anything wrong. You probably didn't do anything wrong. These things happen. I'm not critiquing you, the person, or your boat. I'm just simply trying to tell you we're having an issue here, a serious one. And if we don't do something about it, we're going to sink and possibly drown, because none of y'all look like you can swim. So what are we going to do? Absolutely. Chat says his refusal to acknowledge reality killed everyone in that sub. Absolutely. And this is the same situation as they're having on this boat. Their refusal to acknowledge reality is probably going to get them all killed at worst, It's going to sink the boat at best. And you'll be treading water out there in the middle of wherever you are because you guys refuse to acknowledge reality. And then, of course, embedded in this one also, because my friend's boat has a hole in it and his boat is okay, ours must be okay too. It just can't be anything different. It's either all or nothing. That all or nothing, black and white, 0 and 1 mentality displayed by so many different narcissists, so many of them. Okay? So our poor friend, our poor friend trying to get the attention of these people, trying to get them to face reality, trying to get them to see that it's not about being negative or criticizing your boat or being an expert or not minding our own business. It's not about any of that. It's about the current situation that we're in, the severity of it, and the certain consequences of it if we don't do something about it is all that he's trying to do. I don't think he's trying to hurt their feelings. I don't think he's trying to make them feel bad. I think he's trying to save his life and theirs. And this is what they have to say. These are their responses. And I think the original intent of this picture, when I saw it, they weren't looking at it through the lens of narcissism. Whoever posted it was looking at it through the lens of who's going to fix the problem, basically. So if this is everyone's attitude on the boat, who's actually going to fix the problem, which is similar, but I saw it completely different. I'm like, my God, this shows up in so many different ways. So many different ways. So let me comment on what I was going to comment on before I forget it. I was on Instagram and somebody did a skit of trying to figure out why people park next to people in big, empty, open parking lots. So it'll be like a big, big parking lot with hundreds of spaces. You go and park at some random space, then another car will come park like right next to you. And it's like, what are you doing? Why would you do that in this big parking lot? So I was actually really, really curious as to people's reasoning because they asked in the description, they're like, why do people do this? And I was stunned to discover that a lot of people, their response was, here were their top responses. One of their responses was, it makes me feel safer. So if they're in this big empty lot, and we're talking like broad daylight, we're not talking like middle of the night, we're talking broad daylight. It makes them feel safer to be near another car was one of their top responses. Their secondary responses, and this is where the narcissism started to come out. They said, because it's a free country and I can park wherever I want to, and you don't own the lot. That was like the number 2 most frequent response. I can park wherever I want to. You don't own the parking lot. But the number 3 top response was, and this stunned me, you guys, it floored me. Their number 3 response was, because if my car gets broken into, yours will get broken into as well. And if I can ever actually find that skit on Instagram, I may have saved it, I'm not sure. But if I can find it, I will pull it up and we will review it together so you can see that I'm telling you the truth. I couldn't believe it because my mind would never go there. Because I'm the one who's irritated that you park right next to me when there's like 1,000 other spaces out here. Like, why did you do that? It makes me feel weird, makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, it's like a personal space thing. It's one thing if there's nowhere else to park. You have literally an empty parking lot. You pull up right next to me. Why? That makes me feel weird, makes me uncomfortable. All right. I'm jumpy. All right. Can't do that kind of stuff. But anyway, the fact that they said that if the cars get broken into, yours will get broken into also. In other words, they were saying they didn't want to be the only one whose car got broken into. So they will purposely park next to you. In the event somebody is in the mood to break into cars, well, yours will get broken into also. Couldn't believe it, you guys. Couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow. So in other words, you just want people to suffer consequences with you. And what made me think of that is this boat here. Like, well, if we go down, at least we all go down together. I'm not dying with you. I'm not dying at the hands of a dummy. You see what I'm saying? It's the principle of the matter to me. But it's similar thinking. Well, if something happens to me, I want it to happen to you too. Not only is that narcissistic, it's incredibly evil. Now, some people chimed in on that same thread because I spent a long time reading this thread because I couldn't believe it. And they said, well, it's not so much that as if my car gets broken into and your car gets broken into also, insurance is more likely to believe me when I show them that the car next to me got broken into. But to me, I have the same response. I'm like, don't use me to help buffer your whatever's going on with you. Like, I am not your buffer. Like, I'm not your I can't think of the word. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of. But your thought process is if somebody's going around breaking in cars, well, then I want yours to get broken into also so insurance will believe my claim. Chat says to buffer your failings. Yeah, misery loves company, right? Like, how insane is that? But I feel like it's a similar situation with this boat. It's like, well, if it goes down, at least we all went down together. It's like, but I don't want to go down with you. We're not cool like that. Like, I don't, We're not in love. We're not dating. We're not family. We're probably barely friends if this is the way that you think. And you want to go down together as if it's something honorable and noble. Like, I'm not here to help you absorb your losses, help buffer your failings. That's not what I'm made for. But I couldn't believe it, y'all. And I think I probably, if I can find it, I will do a separate show and we will examine that whole comment thread together because I just couldn't believe people were even letting it come out off of their fingertips. The first one was kind of, I don't want to say understandable, but I would say it was the least narcissistic. So it makes you feel safer to park next to another car that could have people hiding in it. See, that's the way I think. If we're in a big empty parking lot and I go pull up and park next to another car, how do I know there's not somebody in there waiting for someone to do it, that exact thing and hop out and get me? Like, distance, please. But they feel safer, like hovering together like I don't know, like little penguins or something, trying to stay warm in the blizzard or something. I don't know. Or if you saw the movie I, Robot many years ago, when they were opening up the shipping containers and the robots were like huddled together for like safety and comfort. I don't know. Look, this is not a group activity. It's a parking lot. Grow up. But it makes them feel safer to be next to another car was one response. The second response was really arrogant, ignorant, and narcissistic of because you don't own the parking lot and I can park wherever I want to. I'm like, see, in certain areas of the country, that's actually not a safe thing to do. You shouldn't do that because it makes other people feel uncomfortable. Like, wow, this parking lot is wide open. You come park right next to me. What do you want? What do you need? Like, is there something that you need? Why are you right here? You know, it's extremely weird. But then number three was the most narcissistic to me, which was because if something happens to my car, it'll happen to your car too. Like, wow, unbelievable. They want you to go down with their ship, basically, which is truly the theme of tonight's live stream, that dealing with these people will sink your ship. And not only that, they want you to go down with their ship. If their ship goes down, they either want you on it or they want your ship to go down too because they're sick people. They're not well. So I thought that was funny and very telling. And I thought you guys would get a lot out of just that one meme. I wish I knew who drew it so I could give them appropriate credit, but I did find it on LinkedIn. So whoever drew it is very, very insightful. And I can tell they've been traumatized by a lot of these people. They've been through this before. They know what's up. So I just want y'all to keep these things in mind. I want you to be thinking about all the different ways these different attitudes show up in our world, how often we hear them from narcissistic people. And I want you to recognize them for what they are. It's ignoring reality, it's delusion, it's averting responsibility and accountability, it's deflecting and trying to find a way to take no action, which their whole life is defined by that, basically. It's gaslighting. Um, and how they often try to make the person who raises the issue the bad person. And I think what we should start getting comfortable with is the discomfort of being the quote unquote bad person. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable because it's the only way sometimes to push back. And in some circumstances, it's the only way to save your own life. So if they don't care about their own lives, which I've done a video on that before, narcissists don't care about you because they don't care about themselves. So if they don't care enough about themselves to save their own life, you have to care enough about yourself to save your life. And I think that is the takeaway message from tonight's live stream. So I appreciate all of you. I am going to try to get back on a regular cadence. I still have not checked my email, but I'm going to. So if you've emailed me in the past couple of months, I'm going to get back to you. I promise. I promise. I'm committed to responding to all of you. I really am. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. And thank you for hanging in there with me through all things, through all types of weather. Yes. So, with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your long weekend. Enjoy Labor Day. If you're off tomorrow, I know I will be. And we'll talk again very, very, very soon. Okay. Bye.